Hello and welcome again in the afternoon session of the scientific conference International Day of Science. My name is Michal Menšik and I'm the chair of the afternoon session. We have scheduled 5 papers in the first portion of the afternoon session. And the first paper is Impact of COVID-19 on the car industry in the EU, CR, and on coil bearings, which will be presented by Petr Novák. So I'd like to ask Petr Novák, can we hear and see each other? I'm not sure whether we have a sound right now. Petr Novák, are you ready to start with your presentation?
Yes, hello, can you hear me, please?
Perfect. So the floor is yours.
Excellent. So thank you very much for the invitation for the Conference of International Days of Science. And I'd like to thank the organizers of the conference to invite me to this great event. First, let me please introduce myself. My name is Petr Novák, and I'm a director of corporate planning of JTECT European Operations. JTECT, let me quickly introduce to you, is part of Toyota Motor Company. It's one of the group companies owned by Toyota. And in Europe, we have 16 manufacturing plants employing over 7,000 employees. In the Czech Republic, we have 4 manufacturing plants, one in Olomouc, where I am residing, one in Pardubice, and 2 in Pilsen. Regarding quick introduction of myself, I am originally from the Czech Republic. I have studied in the United States 2 universities, one in Pennsylvania focused on international business and finance, and second in Chicago, in Illinois, MBA at DePaul University. In 2001, I was asked to move from US back to Czech Republic, and I started here to start these operations of the greenfield manufacturing plant here. Started originally in finance function, and then since 2008 until 2018, I assumed position of plant manager and then later president of the factory. 2019, I moved to a position in Japan at our global headquarters in Nagoya, where I worked for a team responsible for some global improvement process at JTECT. And recently, 2020, about 1 year ago, I took this position as director of corporate planning at our headquarters in Lyon, France, responsible for management system of our corporation, which consists of organization structure, meeting structure, monitoring tools, KPIs we have in our corporation in Europe. I am responsible for risk management, and I'm also responsible and cooperate on our strategy in terms of footprint, what we make, where we make it, what manufacturing sites. So it's a quick introduction of myself. So I'm happy to be here as part of today's conference call. Let me share my presentation with you. And the topic of today's presentation will be Czech automotive industry and its current situation after COVID. So I want to ensure you can see the presentation. So I will briefly ask, do you please see my presentation? I have not heard a response, so I assume you are seeing my presentation, please.
Yes, we can see that.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, very good. Thank you for confirmation. So the presentation consists of 3 parts. First part is focused on automotive industry in the Czech Republic and so-called Autosap Association, which is an automotive industry association in the Czech Republic. Second part will be focused on automotive industry, the economic data and COVID impact for not only Czech Republic, but also Europe and a global view. And the third part will be focused on automotive industry expectations in this year, 2021. So we have a lot of topics to cover, not much time, so I will go immediately to the first topic, which is a quick introduction of automotive industry in the Czech Republic. and this Automotive Industry Association. I am part of Czech Automotive Industry Association. I'm on the board of this association. So through this, I can also explain what we are, who we are, and what we focus on. So the first part is introduction of this industry in the Czech Republic, automotive. So automotive industry produces 26% of industrial production. It creates 23% of exports of the Czech Republic. And when we look at the numbers of vehicles produced in 2019, we have produced 1.5 million vehicles. And in 2020, and you can here see the impact of COVID, 1.2 million vehicles. On the right, we can see the numbers in terms of employment. So directly through the companies that are part of these automotive industry associations, we employ 180,000 employees. And if we include employees in the sub-suppliers, or subcontractors, in total, we employ over 500,000 employees in the Czech Republic. In overall, we invest more than 36% of all industrial R&D investment in the Czech Republic. What's not listed here is automotive industry represents 10% of Czech Republic gross domestic product. In terms of number of cars produced per capita, we are second in the world after Slovakia. In terms of buses, we are number one worldwide per capita. And if we take absolute numbers in terms of how many vehicles we produce, we are number 5 in Europe, and we are number 15 worldwide. So these numbers clearly show this automotive industry is really important for this country. And our main mission is to ensure that the future automotive trends, which are happening at the moment, and which are the greatest since the history of automotive industry, this will stay also in the future. Here you can see the map of the Czech Republic, and you can see all the companies that are part of the Automotive Industry Association. And you can see that it's spread quite evenly throughout the country. We have large OEM customers, which are, of course, Škoda Auto, which is the largest in the Czech Republic. We have Toyota Motor Manufacturing Czech, which has a very nice factory in Kolín. And then we have Hyundai Motor Manufacturing Czech in Nošovice, in northeast Moravia, which is producing Hyundai vehicles for not only Europe, but they also export to Middle East and Russia. We also have final OEMs in terms of buses, part of Iveco. We have SOR Lipchavy, which is also very large bus producer. We have truck maker Tatra, which has a great history here in the Czech Republic and is well known worldwide. And we also have motorcycles like Java, which are produced here. So the automotive industry is not only about cars, but as you can see, it's also about buses, it's about motorcycles, it's about trucks and trailers. On the next slide, we represent here the number of companies which are present in this Automotive Industry Association. There are 139. Out of this, 87 are suppliers, which are focused on production of parts and also services in the automotive industry. We have 39 companies which are under category others, and these are research and development centers, these are universities, and these are other non-profit organizations or R&D companies which are focused in the automotive industry. And the last OEM, which is of course the most important, which are the final makers in the Czech Republic, which I already mentioned, like Škoda Auto, Toyota, or Hyundai. So in total, final makers we have in the Czech Republic are 13. What we offer is, this is an association to ensure that we continue this strong influence and presence of the automotive industry in the Czech Republic. We offer a networking platform for our members, many events and meetings. We publish newsletters and magazines focused on automotive trends, interviews, interesting changes in terms of environmental points. We also make a lot of lobbying, not only here in the Czech Republic, but also at EU, especially now with the environmental emissions. We provide information to our members. We support our companies for exports into countries through also, of course, government agencies, into countries where companies don't have the experience, are not established, to ensure that they can export successfully. We provide industry analytics and statistics, PR and media coverage, our support for the members, and then, of course, many projects for our employees, members through like education. Example is here, battery research for electricity vehicles, and any consultations. So the spread of our presence is quite large. And with, again, the main mission is to continue the strong presence and focus of the automotive industry, especially now with the latest trends happening worldwide. So that's the first part of the introduction of automotive industry in the Czech Republic. Second will be now focused on the economic data of the automotive industry and the COVID impact for Czech Republic, European Union, and also global view. So first on this slide is information provided on sales and exports of automotive companies here in the Czech Republic. You can see on the bottom the legend from the year 2009 until 2019. Year 2020 and the first months of 2021 I will show in the next slides. As you can see, since 2009 until 2019, every year we have been increasing sales and exports of automotive industry here in the Czech Republic. So it's been very positive, very good, fruitful time period for our country. We started sales in 2009 at 516 billion Czech crowns, and it progressively grew every year until 2019 at 1.1 trillion Czech crowns of sales, which were made by automotive companies. Growth over 2018 was 1.9%. Exports, very similar trend line. So out of 1.1 trillion sales, exports were 942 billion. So you can see that we are an export country, and export for us is absolutely important. And this is why this global view for us as automotive industry is very, very important. On this slide, we can see change impact for year 2020. First, we will look at the global number for the year, and then in the next slide, I will show you by month. So for the global number, we can say that in 2020, we have reduced total production of vehicles by 19%. It's a major hit for us in the Czech Republic. So we have produced 1.1 million vehicles, 1.2 rounded million vehicles, which consists of passenger cars at 1.1 million vehicles, a reduction of 19.2% compared to previous year. Then buses at 5,000, slight reduction, only 2.8% compared to previous year. Motorcycles, 553, it's a major reduction of 43%, and trailers, 26,000, and slight improvement of 1% compared to previous year. When we look at the slide by month, and here it nicely shows, if I say nicely, but of course it's very negative information for us, is sales by month compared 2019 to 2020. So 2019 is a gray color, and you can see each month how many vehicles have been produced in the Czech Republic. So for example, January, 115,000, February, 116,000. And it was quite even, no major changes during the months. The only exception, of course, is July and December, and this is affected by summer shutdowns of the final makers. The red line represents 2020. And you can see that January, February 2020, we started the year on a positive note. It was a slight improvement over 2019, and we have already made communication announcements that we expect that 2020, this was before COVID, would be about the same level as 2019, because nobody predicted that this major impact of COVID would happen for automotive industry. Then in March, COVID suddenly came unexpectedly. Many of the automakers have been shut down completely, usually 4 to 6 weeks here in the Czech Republic. And this has been spread between the months of March, April, and some companies also beginning of May. And this is why the numbers have significantly dropped during those months. All the member companies have took very important preventive measures to ensure that safety and health of our employees is at first place. And then only after ensuring that we have these preventive measures in place, and I will show you some examples later, companies gradually reopened, because again, the safety and health of our employees was absolutely must, absolutely first. Then, as the first wave of COVID started to disappear, production of automotive vehicles came back to reasonable numbers and copied very similar levels of 2019. So you can see from June, July, August, we were hitting almost the same numbers. In November, it was a big peak in 2019. But when we take all of those numbers as an average, we have seen that the automotive industry, after the first wave, have took very, again, strong preventive measures, have been able to successfully reopen their production sites, produce the vehicles according to customer demand. And what is very important is that there was still this demand, not only here in the Czech Republic, but as has been showed, we are an export country globally, which helped that this automotive industry was sustainable, even during this very difficult COVID time in 2020. At the end, we can see the average for the year, which is the minus 19.2%, which I mentioned in the previous slides. When we look at this COVID impact in terms of unproduced cars, I start from the left. It was 275,000 vehicles, which were not being produced in the Czech Republic in 2020 during this COVID time. It has decreased sales of 105 billion Czech crowns for the final OEMs. It has decreased sales of suppliers of 75 billion Czech crowns. And if we take the full year picture, we expect about 210 billion Czech crowns was a decline of sales for the whole Czech Republic country automotive industry. So it's a major, major hit for us. So there was a view of Czech Republic. Here on this slide, we can see a view of global production outlook in 20. And we can see that the numbers have quite varied region by region. So I will start again from the left. So North and South America minus 30%. So I'm sure you have all been very informed as you have read the newspapers, watched TV, and about the COVID wave in North and South America. So we can see here also the sales have been significantly impacted for that region. In Europe, when we take average of the European Union, the decline was 25%. Middle East, minus 10%, and Asia, minus 15%. And Czech Republic was 20%, which I showed in the previous slide. So when we take all of this information, we can say that Asia came out as, if I use this terminology, it's the best in these very difficult times. Europe, about 1/4 of decline of sales, and Czech Republic, as it's exporting a lot of the vehicles and also parts in the automotive supply chain to regions outside of Europe. And we have many customers in Asia, has been impacted by 20%, so slightly less than European Union. Our outlook for 2021, so this is the positive news, is expecting a nice recovery. So when we look at the region by region numbers, again from the left, North and South America, about 10% increase. Europe, also 10% increase. Asia, which is confirming also by the sales of the recent months, plus 30%. And Czech Republic, we copy Europe at 10%. So based on these numbers, we do expect that the worst is behind us. And we do expect that this increase of sales will support us again for the sustainability and long-term success of this automotive industry, not only Czech Republic, but worldwide. Here is more detailed numbers of 2021, as we have already closed the first quarter, January, February, March 2021. So when we compare 2021, we did not start too well on a positive note. January decline of minus 22%, February minus 15%. And when we take the whole first quarter, it's minus 1%. Why? If I say only minus 1%, because March came out very strong. And as you have seen in the previous slide, March 2020 has been already impacted by this first wave of COVID, where there was a significant decline of production and sales. So for the Czech Republic, this is the month for the Czech Republic. We are almost about the same level as the year before. Again, the expectation for the full year, which is the number in gray on the right, is plus 10%. Same view for Europe, for European Union. So December 2020, minus 3%, January minus 12%, February minus 19%. And new numbers have been just announced for the first quarter. So I don't have it in the presentation, but I will say verbally. It was minus 3.2% when we take the first quarter of 2021. So you can see again that March was strong for Europe compared to previous year, again impacted by first wave. And we are at about the same level as last year. And the expectations is that this sales to hit this plus 10% will gradually improve and increase in the next months as we see quite good and stable outlook from our customers. But not everything, of course, is bright, and we are affected in the automotive industry by many trends. And those trends are shown here, impacts that we have to really closely watch. First one, Brexit. Yes, as England is not part of European Union, so many issues on the logistics transport. Tariffs are resolved for time being. We don't have to pay customs and duties. But this is still under negotiation after this temporary time period. Transport from Asia. This is a big issue in automotive industry, capacity of containers, and also a major increase of transportation costs through the sea on the containers. It's the cheapest way to transport goods. And as the automotive industry is a global supply chain, we do import and export a lot of goods from Asia and to Asia. And this sea shipment is very critical for us. Unfortunately, we have seen in the last 6 months a major increase of transport from Asia. And this cost is negatively impacting us. Of course, you know about Suez Canal issue that happened, about Ever Given, large boat that have stuck in Suez Canal. And this, of course, impacted also many of automotive OEMs. And we have seen that some OEMs have been impacted, that they did not have components, and the same for the suppliers. So this transport from Asia is very, very important factor, which we have to watch from 2 points of view. One is cost, and one is ability to deliver, again, because of capacity and any unexpected issues like this Suez Canal problem. Third item is through free movement of goods and people inside of EU. As individual states inside of European Union impose restrictions in terms of travel of people, in terms of travel across borders, this significantly impacts, of course, transportation. And as again, this is a global supply chain, and we have suppliers global. And in Europe especially, there are many trucks going daily between companies. We have to ensure that those borders are opened. And that there are no slowdowns and restrictions. And for example, when the border was closed between Czech Republic and Germany, this caused a major issue on our members here in the automotive industry to supply parts on time, or on the other hand, we had a supplier outside of Czech Republic to get them delivered to our final OEMs on time. COVID. So there's a major, of course, uncertainty about the next steps and how this pandemic situation will develop. We do believe and expect that through vaccination, this will greatly improve, that the worst is behind us. Our sales numbers are supporting it. But again, nobody knows, because this pandemic situation is very, very unexpected. It's an unprecedented situation. Next one is chips, semiconductor chips. I'm sure you have heard, but globally in the world, there is a lack of semiconductor chips. There's not enough of them to supply all industries, especially small electronics like telephones, electronics, TVs, where there is many semiconductors. And in the automobile, there is many semiconductors used, especially now with the safety elements enforced by EU legislation. For example, line control, parking assistance, all of these are semiconductors that have to be installed in the automobiles. And due to global lack of capacity of semiconductor, this affects final OEMs, and some companies had been forced already to shut down their production sites. Example, TMM CZ, which is a Toyota motor manufacturing Czech, closed the factory for 2 weeks. Škoda Auto, it has to reschedule its production based on the availability of semiconductor chips. Fortunately, they did not shut down yet, but it's very, very tight situation. Daimler in Germany, in Rastatt, they had to also close their factory. So this is very difficult now, and we basically live on a tight mode, where we have to wait on the information if some unprecedented, let's say, delivery problem happens, and then it affects the whole supply chain. And this is especially true in the automotive industry, because all of this is just in time, with not enough safety stock. And last point mentioned here, which is a transformation of automotive industry. So this is all the changes, all the trends which are affecting with e-mobility, yes, with plug-in electric vehicles, with automation, with digitalization, connectivity inside of cars. So all those trends, of course, are affecting all companies which are inside of auto industry. So what was the impact for the company here in Koyo Bearings, Czech Republic? So this is a picture of this factory, which is located in Olomouc region. As I mentioned, it's part of JTEC Corporation. We have 16 plants in Europe, so this one is in Olomouc. And very quickly, this is the sales of this company here, and you can see highlighted in blue this COVID impact. And as you can see, this COVID impact from April until about August. July and August, please take as reserved because of summer shutdown. So we had it about 2 to 3 months when we have seen an impact from April to June of reduced sales numbers. But then what is important is the second part, which is from September, October 2020 until March 2021. You can see a major increase, continued increased trend of the sales, which shows that the worst, at least at the moment, we see that the worst of this COVID impact is behind us, and we are on a way to full recovery before COVID times. What, of course, will happen in the next months will greatly depend on those impacts, those trends I have mentioned on the previous slides. More specifically, as I mentioned, safety and health of our employees was a mandate in the Czech Republic. So this is an example of this company preventive action plan. What was done to ensure that this health and safety of employees first before production, before sales, before profit. So examples are here: prepared an emergency plan for pandemic situation, enforced 100% temperature control when entering plant. We prohibited any employee to come inside of a plant with a higher temperature. We provided disinfectants to wash hands, all the premises like offices, canteens, locker rooms. We provided mandatory face masks, eyeglasses, and now it's 100% of respirators to all employees, which we of course provide free of charge. Maximum air exchange from outside, so we have enforced to maximum air ventilation. We canceled all visitors inside the factory. We enforced the home office to office employees. If you would walk through the plant, it's quite empty in the offices because we want people to work from home. We increased the level of IT equipment for online meetings and home offices. The meetings inside of the factory have been cancelled. They are replaced by online meetings. Production meetings, which production of course has to continue, they are only in small groups. Sitting order is respecting 2-meter distance. We installed plastic shields in offices, in canteen support departments. In production, we have made some change in our standard work for the operators to make a distance of the workers. And we have enforced some safety quantity of face masks, gloves, respirators, disinfectants, in case a new wave will come, that we have enough supply. Third part of the presentation, I see I have 5 minutes, so I think we have a good time, is the automotive industry expectations for 2020. So what do we expect? So I'm using this information from the European Automotive Supplier Association, CLEPA, where the vaccination, the 5 trends, themes that impact the recovery in 2021 is first, vaccinations and relaunch of the economy. Second, electrification and this recovery of automotive sales. Third, repaying the COVID debts, because many of the companies have a very tight cash flow. Many companies have at the end been in a negative profit. So this is absolutely important that they survive these difficult times. Number 4, implementation of this European Recovery Fund, which will help all the member countries to invest, which will include, of course, automotive sector. And number 5 is the crisis aftermath, which is the risks and upsides that we see for this after COVID time period. Very quickly, so vaccination. So we know that now throughout Europe, not only Europe, but worldwide, vaccination is very important for us to really reopen the economy, reopen the countries, reopen the borders, and to put this pandemic situation at least under reasonable control. So this is absolutely must that is happening in all the countries with the vaccinations that have been approved by the European Commission. Electrification of vehicles. We do expect, and this is the first chart on the left top, that the sale of electric vehicles, BEV is battery electric vehicles, will increase significantly. And you can see China, European Union, United States. 2019, 20, 25, 30. You can see this significant increase, 25 and 30 in all countries around the world. Now in the US, also expected with Joe Biden, who is now putting back environmental protection and is discussing about support of electric vehicles. So we do expect the US numbers will even more increase. This is the trend that is impacting us in a global point of view. And this is why automotive OEMs and the suppliers have to watch this trend very carefully to be prepared. You can see here on this slide, sale of electric vehicles by individual final maker, OEM. So Daimler, for example, 18% of the sales have been electric vehicles. BMW 16, Kia 17. This includes hybrid electric vehicles, but you can see that the numbers are still quite low compared to what is expected in the future. And on the right is the gap to target, means to the environmental emission, CO2, where many companies still have to continue to improve. Because in front of us is a new legislation. We call it Euro 7. We are now under Euro 6. With the Euro 7, which will start in 2025, the legislation of CO2 emissions will dramatically reduce again. And this is why there is a strong support for these electric vehicles sales globally, which will meet these emission limits. We as automotive industry are independent. We are neutral because we believe that there are other means to achieve it. through synthetic engines, synthetic fuels, excuse me. We believe that it could be through hybrids, it could be through other means that could help us to achieve those environmental emission limits. Next topic is the European fund, which is committed to each country. So you can see here on the scale on the left bottom that Czech Republic, for example, allocated 9.4 billion euro. Italy, much greater, about 200 billion euro. Spain, about 150 billion euro. So this money, each country is now preparing this plan where to invest, recovery and resilience plan, into what means, and this will be a lot into investment into research and development to support these trends. And this is the last slide, which is the political elections, which is ahead of us on the bottom. So in January 20, US change to Joe Biden, as mentioned, more environmentally supporting, which will impact also a change to e-mobility. In March in Netherlands. In September, elections in Germany, October, Czech Republic, and then in 22, presidential and general elections in France. All of those, of course, may impact where we head and what those countries will enforce. So that was the last slide of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. What I show here is let's tackle the challenges ahead together, because as you can see, the trends are huge. The problems are here. The impacts of the industry could be significant. And this is why it's a teamwork. We need to all work together. So I see it's time to finish. So I'd like to thank you for your patience with me, and I wish you enjoying the rest of the conference and have a nice day.
Thank you, Petr, for your presentation. Especially thank you for keeping up with the time. This was the first and opening presentation during our afternoon session. It was, I would say, COVID-related, which definitely is not the last presentation to expect during this afternoon session to be related with the COVID. However, the next presentation is not strictly focused on the COVID and impact of the COVID, but we will stay in production area. And the next presentation is about circular economy in corporate social responsibility strategies, and we will observe the evidence from non-financial reports of Russian companies. So, can we present? Are we ready?
Yes, we are ready.
Perfect. So the floor is yours. Welcome, and
thank you very much.
If you could please present your paper.
Yes, I think I am. Do you see it? Is it clear?
There is usually some delay, so not now, but I believe it will start in a while. Yes, we can see your presentation, and the presentation, as mentioned on the slide, is by Jana Sokola and Koreval Lyubov, so please take the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much, dear colleagues. I was very impressed by Peter's presentation. Thank you very much for this deep dig in the industry with all the trends. And I should say that our research, our article, and our presentation is pure scientific. Maybe we don't have such a lot of industry numbers, but we have some, I think, interesting information also to think about. My name is Jana Sokola. I'm a PhD and assistant professor in St. Petersburg State University of Economics, and I'm here with Koreval Lyubov, PhD and professor in the same university. And today we're speaking about circular economy in corporate social responsibility strategies, evidence from non-financial reports of Russian companies. We all know that now we are living in a linear economy, which is produce, use, and waste. This circle is not very proficient. So the main aim, the main subject today, speaking about sustainability, is to move from the linear model to the circular economy. Circular economy when we produce, use, reuse, and we don't waste but use the resources once again to produce further. So this is a rather new concept. About 10-20 years ago, we started to speak about it. So, and of course, the main driver of the circular economy is business. So we decided to take a look at how the business understands the circular economy, and does the business want to be part of this circular economy? So the best thing for us to take a look at the business opinion about circular economy is to look at their non-financial reports, also known as corporate social responsibility reports or sustainability reports. There are some reports where they write about their initiatives, what they do for society, ecology, etc. So we decided to take a look if the business, if the companies which work in Russia know the term of circular economy, and do they use them in their non-financial reporting. So some similar research was made in cosmetic industry and consumer goods sector, and also in different countries. So we had the two main research questions. The first is there any notification of using the term of circular economy in corporate social responsibility reports of Russian companies? And by Russian companies, we mean the companies which operate in Russia. And the second question, is there any sectoral differences between how they involved in their circular economy, again in Russian business? So how did we collect our sample? Of course, we all know that there are international database where you can take a look at all their non-financial reports. But as we understand, the number of reports from Russian companies are very limited there, because not every company translates its report in English. So we use a database of Russian Union of Industrialists and Entrepreneurs, and we found more than 90 reports there. They issued it was reports of the year 2019. Our research was made in January 2021, and at that time it was the latest data available. So at the end we had 96 reports from 85 companies. The number of reports in companies are not the same, because some companies provide several reports. For example, they separate their corporate social responsibility reports from their ecological, for example, reports, and from 16 sectors or industries of Russian economy. So what we were looking for, we wanted to find any mention about circular economy in the report. But because the circular economy concept and the term is not very, we need to translate it into Russian. So we found in literature the most popular translations of circular economy in Russian. So we were looking for those for collocations. You see that on the slide. And occurrence were checked also for relevance for circular economy. So at the end, we found out that 13% of studied Russian companies mentioned circular economy in the reports. And you see the list of these companies, and you also see the number of mentions in the reports. So, for example, for Coca-Cola, it's 1, Philip Morris 1, etc. And as you see, mostly it's 1 or 2 mentions about their circular economy. And the interesting company is Sibur Group. They have 62 mentions of circular economy. So our aim of this research, which is the first step of the global, like the bigger research that we wanted to conduct. So it is the first step. So we aim to find out the mentions of the circular economy. And it doesn't mean that the company, the other company who doesn't have any mention circular economy, do not implement principles or practice of circular economy. It's only about mentions. Do they understand the concept and do they put it in their non-financial reports? So there are some citation from the company, and where you can see, for example, Coca-Cola had only one mention, and they say it was an interview from the manager of sustainable development of the company, and they say that they invest heavily to bring their circular economy closer. But in the text, we don't see any mention about it again. So some companies are writing that they want to move to 3 air recycling economy model. Some are saying that they signed for commitment, and this commitment wants to bring this to develop circular economy in the world, and etc. So there are more citation in the paper. And there is a second question, research question that we ask: is there any differences in companies and sectors? So as we see, you see the number of industries, the names of industries, the name of companies which presented their reports, the number of reports, and how many times does how many companies from these sector mentioned their mentioned circular economy and the percentage. And as you see, the manufacturer food and other consumer goods and retail are top. Of course, we understand that the sample is it should be bigger to make some conclusions statistically valuable. But we think that is also giving us some picture. And also you see that about 60% of all the interested industries, they didn't mention circular economy in their non-profit reports at all. So what are the main conclusions and discussions? So 13% of companies provided non-financial report and working in Russia has mentioned the circular economy in non-financial reports. So the future research that we would like to have and to understand. So how we found confirmation of their website or other sources, if they really understand the term and do they really want to build the circular economy in their company, and does the companies implement ideas but do not name it, because we saw many examples of that. That would be interesting to see. And half of the represents international companies. It was in the previous slide, and as you see, there was Coca-Cola, Enel, Leroy Merlin, etc., and they're not originally from Russia. And it would be interesting to understand the correlation between the origin of the company, operation scale, and implementation of circular economy. And we also notice that manufacture of food and other consumer products and retail industries, they are they're on the top of the list. So, and the question is, do the customers drive companies to implement their circular economy? These are the questions for the future research, and we are very interested in collaboration. And thank you very much for inviting us to this conference. I think that is it.
Thank you, Jana, for your presentation. And again, you are excellent today. Thank you for keeping up with the time. We are precise as a Swiss watch. The next presentation, as I already mentioned at the beginning, will be also related to the effects and impacts of the COVID pandemics. And the presentation is called Influence of the COVID-19 on Financing Business Activities, Lesson Learned from Self-Employed Persons. I believe this presentation is prepared by Jarmila Duháček-Šebestovala, Pavla Pokorná, and Petra Krejčí. And the presenting person will be Jarmila Duháček-Šebestová. I'm just asking to confirm, can we hear each other?
Yes, of course. I'm prepared.
Perfect. So I would like to ask you to share your presentation with us.
I am sharing, but I'm not sure if you see it.
There is a usually small delay, but it seems like we are seeing already the presentation. So we need to go full screen with your presentation. That will probably improve the readability.
So my topic is about influence on COVID pandemic situation, how this situation changed the business operation in area of self-employed persons, because heavy time starts of this self-employed persons, and our research question was if they were prepared for this crisis situation, and especially in financial area. So our rationale for this research problem was that we sometimes in the scientific literature we listen to expression that those sole proprietors just live for the adventure moment and they do not plan their business activities, and they prefer their business satisfaction against long-term planning. So our research question was to see their behavior within this problem and observe their financial management before and after this COVID situation, because for them also it was unusual situation. And you see that national governments also prepare some anti-epidemic restrictions, and they have to close their activity. The number of sole proprietors in the Czech Republic is very high, and it represents more than 15% of active labor force. So we think that this problem is very actual. In this slide, we just mention examples of public support which was offered for small proprietors across European Union and also outside the European Union. You could see that governments offer some support in form of loans, of some special compensations, and you see that they want to help them to cover some fixed costs they need to pay each month. And it was the reason we want to ask these sole proprietors if they understand this type of support and they use this support. Because we read recent studies make this marketing agency in the start of 2020 when those compensations was introduced, and we saw that small proprietors said that their profits decreased. They need to cut their costs, and they also have to reduce their business activities, or they have to use some e-commerce to be able to continue in their activities. Or if they understand well the public support, they only comment it's better than nothing. So we see some negative feeling of this support. So we set some research questions. Which factors affect not using this public support? Why they are not interested in that? And we discuss some two hypotheses connected with financial management. That in hypothesis one, we talk about reinvestments. That maybe one of area is that they reinvest more profit into business activities from internal resources, and there is a reason why they are not interested in public support. And secondly, they change their strategy in financial planning, and it's the reason why they do not use public support. So I will talk shortly about our results. We have just small sample of our respondents due to COVID situation, because we want to ask more group, but those respondents were not available. We made this research by a phone call, and we want to ask one person from the population of small proprietors. But as you see, the sample is not like this person, but we see some atmosphere of this research group. So you see that our respondents have a long-term experience in entrepreneurship, so they maybe have some experience also with some crisis situation, and they could answer correctly on our questions. We evaluated this motivation on real public support. You see that more than 50% of people in our sample did not use public support during first wave of restrictions. And you see some sentiment of why they do not use it, because when it's plus here, so you see that they answer that they really need it, so they use it because they were positive with that, and they use it for company development or their operations, or they see that the government knows that they need this financial help, and they apply for this help. Or it was opposite that the group said that they want to use this this support, but they finally changed the decisions because they they decided that they have their own money, and they do not apply for this help. And maybe the reason when we were talking with them, they didn't trust that the government could help them really, and they maybe feel that they have to pay back this money after a pandemic situation. Secondly, we were discussing with them which programs or which support they prefer to use. And you see, in first places, that it was about some operational costs together with them. So it's about social and health insurance. So it's closely connected with their operations and with the compensations. Or on the third place was about the care of their children. So it was 3 types of programs they use or see as useful for them to provide or cover their operations during the first wave of COVID situation. Finally, we want to describe their financial behavior, why they do not use public support. We asked them about their profit reinvestments, and we saw that before the COVID starts, sole proprietors use their profit back for their entrepreneurial activity. And during the situation, they reinvested more. So they also use profit for their operational activities, and they use their internal sources to be safe, to be able to keep their business. And we see that their behavior did not change during this COVID situation, because as they evaluate their behavior finally, they said in most cases that their strategy was good, and secondly, that they care about making reserve fund to be prepared for worsening situation, and not to rely on some governmental support. So you see that those people are planning during all their financial or business operations, and not only when some crisis situation is coming. So we have to reject all 2 hypotheses because we have to recognize that this financial behavior didn't change. Also, to conclude this presentation, we find out that in some cases, in many cases, sole proprietors do not accept the public support, and in some cases they do not understand how to apply or which are requirements for this support. And secondly, their financial behavior was quite the same as before COVID situation was coming. So they were behaving quite the same as before this situation, and they just accommodate with the change. So it's the all. Thank you for attention.
Okay, Jarmila, thank you for your presentation. We are still perfectly on time. This was the best paper award for 2021, so congratulations once again for this award. Next in our program is the paper by Omar Ameir and Renata Pavličková. And just now we will slightly move from the online environment into more present environment, as Dr. Ameir is here with us in the studio. And he will present the paper of comparison the anchoring effect application in employee management in Vysočina region with Prague and Moravian Silesian regions. So please, Dr. Ameir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Michal. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce myself. My name is Omar Ameir, and I am a member of the Department of Sustainable Development here in Moravian Business College Olomouc. So now we can move on my presentation. So let me introduce fundamental information about our paper that deals with comparison of the anchoring effect application in employee management in Vysočina region with Prague and Moravian Silesian region. This paper, or we can say that two authors prepared this paper, my colleague Mrs. Renata Pavličková and me. So this is the presentation outline. First chapter deals with introduction. The second chapter solves goal, hypothesis, methods. The third step solves results, and the last chapter deals with discussion. So there are two types of economic decision making: rational and irrational. What does it mean? Rational, this is decisions based on reasonable purposes and goals that can be justified by exact arguments. We can say that we have two types of economic decision making. We have two types of rational economic decision making, and it's positive and negative. What does it mean, irrational decision making? It's a decision making that is motivated not only by a logic reason, but also by emotions and intuitions. And the same, there are two types of irrational economic decision making, positive and negative. And what is it? Behavioral economics. Behavioral economics deals with negative irrational decision making, and behavioral economics examines the confrontation of rationality with irrationality, and examines the effects of social, cognitive, and emotional factors on economic decision making of economic subjects. And finally, explains the rational decision making of economic operators. Generally, we can say that in recent years, behavioral economics has gained considerable influence in many fields of study, and also in the political, management, and economic areas. Experts in behavioral economics found out that people don't act only by logic, thinking. Their behavior and the decisions are influenced by intuitive reaction and mental state. This is a statement by Tversky and Kahneman. Tversky, Kahneman, and Thaler contributed to an establishment of two new fields of study. Both of them are on the border of psychology and economics. The first field is experimental economics, and the second field is behavioral economics. There are many new hypotheses in the science of behavioral economics, and at the same time, the behavioral economics evaluates how the results of the decision are influenced by decision, process, and external influences. About 2 years ago, research in the field of behavioral economics was conducted. It was our research, and this our previous research had two basic goals. The first goal of the paper was to find out how much the managers of enterprises with more than 100 employees use the anchoring effect to anchor their employees. And the second goal of the paper was to determine whether managers of Prague companies with more than 100 employees use anchoring effect more often than managers of Moravian Silesian region companies with more than 100 employees. The result of this previous research showed that the managers in Czech Republic still don't use the anchoring effect too often. That if managers know and use the anchoring effect, they use it relatively often. Third result showed that the level of the application of the anchoring effect is higher in Prague than in Moravian Silesian region. And the difference in the use of anchoring effect between Prague and Moravian Silesian region is not very significant. The authors also stated that it's possible to carry out similar research in other cities. Let's move on. So second chapter deals with goal, hypothesis, and methods of this research, of this paper. The goal of the paper is to compare the anchoring effect application in employee management in Vysočina region with two regions which are Prague and Moravian Silesian region. It means the comparison applies to enterprises with more than 100 employees. The authors set the following hypothesis. Hypothesis is that the managers of Vysočina region's enterprises with more than 100 employees use anchoring effect 20% less often than both the managers of Prague enterprises with more than 100 employees and the managers of Moravian Silesian region enterprises with more than 100 employees. The individual methods applied in this paper will be now described. It means the questionnaire survey and the anchoring effect. Questionnaire survey, very briefly, it was online anonymous. Was realized since the 27th of October till the 18th of December 2020. The original deadline for the collection of responses was set on the 4th of December. Due to a relatively small number of responses, the duration of the questionnaire survey was extended till the 18th of December. Questionnaire survey was sent to 91 enterprises with more than 100 employees in Vysočina region and its surroundings. The questionnaire was sent to the responsible management of the selected enterprises. And the questionnaire survey was created to take only about 3 minutes to complete. So the authors wanted to achieve a high rate of return. This is the reason why questionnaire survey was created to take only about 3 minutes to complete. Anchoring effect. Anchoring effect, again, very briefly. The anchoring means a form of cognitive animosity for an individual to rely too heavily on an initial piece of information offered when making decisions. By definition, the anchoring effect is a heuristic when initial exposure to a number serves as a reference point. This number then influences later judgment about value. Once the anchor has been established, we evaluate whether it's high or low, and then we adjust our estimate to that amount. This mental process finishes yearly because we are not sure of the real amount. Therefore, our estimation is not usually far from the anchor. The anchor is deep in our mind, in our brain, so it's very difficult to left it. And the consumers have a huge tendency to use small pieces of information that they are offered to trigger decisions and estimates. Basic anchoring occurs if people pay sufficient attention to the anchor value. Knowledgeable people are less susceptible to basic anchoring effects. And finally, anchoring effect has widespread influence, including on professionals who are well educated on the related topic. So move on the results. The table shows the knowledge of the anchoring effect in 3 evaluated areas. It means a comparison of the Vysočina region with Prague and Moravian Silesian region. This consequence was not important to verify the hypothesis. The significance of this consequence was only to slightly manipulate the respondents and thus achieve credible answers in other questions. The authors evaluated a lot of context, only those contexts that are decisive in relation to research hypothesis will be presented. Approximately 88.8% of managers of the enterprises with more than 100 employees in Vysočina region know the concept of anchoring effect. Approximately 56.25% of the managers of the enterprises with more than 100 employees in Vysočina region have ever tried the anchoring effect or use it regularly. Approximately 37.5% of the managers in Vysočina region used an anchoring effect sometimes, but they use it very rarely and irregularly. Approximately 9.38% of the managers in Vysočina region use the anchoring effect on average at least once a month. Approximately 9.38% of the managers of the enterprises with more than 100 employees in Vysočina region use the anchoring effect on average at least twice a month. The table below shows the comparison the anchoring effect application in Vysočina region with Prague and Moravian Silesian region. As you can see, both values of the percentage difference are less than 20%. The hypothesis is therefore rejected. The table below shows the rate of using the anchoring effect in the Vysočina region. This fulfills the second goal of the paper. And now we can move to the discussion. So the main goal of the paper was to compare the anchoring effect application in the enterprises with more than 100 employees in Vysočina region with enterprises with more than 100 employees in 2 regions, which are Prague and Moravian Silesian region. The authors predicted that the managers of Vysočina region companies use anchoring methods less often than both the managers of Prague companies and the managers of Moravian Silesian region companies. Why we have this hypothesis? Our hypothesis arises from assumption that the more developed and more sophisticated methods, it means management methods, are used in more advanced and more development countries. This is a statement from literature. So this was the reason why we have this assumption, why we have this hypothesis. So as I said, authors set one hypothesis in the beginning, and the results say that this hypothesis was rejected. According to the authors, the research was limited by the following 3 parameters. First parameter is that the surveyed companies were not only from Jihlava, but also from its surroundings. There are not so many enterprises with more than 100 employees in Jihlava as in Prague. Second parameter, the surveyed companies were not only from Ostrava, but also from its surroundings. Again, there are not so many enterprises with more than 100 employees in Ostrava as in Prague. And the third parameter, a huge part of enterprises with more than 100 employees in the Czech Republic have foreign owners. It's a very important parameter. The results further show that if managers know and use the anchoring effect, they use it relatively often. Our results clearly show that the largest rate of use of the anchoring effect is in Prague. Thank you for your attention. If you have some questions.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation. It seems like we are slightly, but just slightly behind the time. On the other hand, the next presentation is my turn, so I'll try to speed up to keep up with time. So I'll ask you if I can hand the presenter. Thank you very much. And I'll try to present our findings from the paper focused on optimized production technology, or OPT. And this was based on a case study within a rubber steel production factory. And we tried to implement the SDBR method, which stands for Simplified Drum and Drum Buffer and Drum Buffer, sorry, I lost it. Simplified Drum Buffer and Rope, okay? The content of our presentation will be, I would say, pretty standard for scientific papers, so I'll briefly focus on introduction, then I will talk about methods, about our results, what we find out, about discussions, how to fit our results within other research, and then what we believe, what we think based on our research. Once again, my name is Michal Menšík. The paper is presented by me, but I was not the only author of the paper. The other and the leading author of the paper is Stefan Kolumber, who is unfortunately not here because some other obligations he has. So go straight to the point. The OPT, or optimized production technology, is knowledge which started in 70s, 80s as a software product, and it has been hugely popular in 80s and 90s based on what is called so-called a business novel, and it was based on theory of constraint. The basic idea behind the theory of constraint is what is described by an old saying, which says the link is only as strong as its weakest chain. The chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And the idea behind the theory of constraint is that the optimal production for the whole manufacturing site is not created by the optimal or maximal production of each production site, but it's driven by the slowest, the production site with the smallest capacity. You can imagine this as traveling within a convoy. The speed of convoy is derived by the maximum speed of the slowest car. Then we can move on within a convoy. So this ideas stands behind the theory of constraint. And what we tried to research was, what if we developed the model of the simplified drum buffer rope model, and how to measure the effect and the impact of this model applied in a rubber seal production company. Just to get any numbers, the rubber seal production company was about 181 at that time, 81 employees, and turnover of that company was around 35 million euro per year. So this is our basic introduction. And the research question is how to implement the SDBR model and what will be the outcomes, what will be the measurable outcomes of the SDBR. Methods. The basic method of our paper was a case study. So we deeply study the company, and the area which we were really focused on were the areas covered by the ISO standards, the ISO of quality management, environmental management, and health and safety management. We conducted research interviews during the year, and these research interviews were conducted within 2 weeks, and these 2 weeks were separated each from other for 6 months. So basically, twice a year we visited the company and we conducted a series of interviews. Each interview was about 45 minutes, and the respondent was usually someone from top management and sometimes complemented or complied with the mid or first line management. And these interviews, it was really intensive interview. So these interviews continue for the whole week. And at the end of each week, we had like 45, 50 interviews, okay? These interviews were based on prepared questions or set of questions. Sometimes these questions were multiple choice, sometimes these were open questions. Sometimes we moved from structured research interview to more open when we find out some, I would say, interesting or more complicated problem. But basically it was based on the research interview. All these research interviews were recorded in prepared protocols, so we can gather the information after the week, so we can proceed on with our research. We observed certain metrics to measure the impact of the SDBR implementation in the factory. The first metric was the working time fund. At the beginning, the company was using the standard 7.5-hour shift. The half an hour was for lunch, of course. And the level of how good this 7.5-hour shift is used, how much time is really used for productive activities, this was set as 100%, okay? Second metric which we focused on was the employee fluctuation, how stable and how predictable the basic set of employees was measured. And again, the standard level at the beginning of our research was set for 100%. Third metric which we observed was unused costs. Unused costs are the costs which have been expensed, which has been spent, but not in effective way. They did not bring back some value added in production or similar. And again, the entry level of unused cost was defined as 100%. And the last but not least metric was the labor productivity. And the labor productivity was the amount of activities fulfilled by the employees before the implementation of the SDBR. And again, this was set as 100% as the basic level. Then we derived the model of the SDBR, and as I mentioned, as the SDBR is based on the theory of constraint, then the bottleneck, the biggest problem of the theory of constraint was here. So any other machine, any other production site shouldn't be producing with a faster pace than the bottleneck. Everyone in this scheme should be linked to the bottleneck, and the pace, the speed of production has to be tied. That's why it's called drum buffer rope, has to be tied with the bottleneck. What if not? Then of course, if the others are producing more than the bottleneck is capable to handle, then there is a significant rise within inventories, and inventories are no value added. It's just money waiting or material waiting or unfinished production waiting until it can be finished. So it's non-productive time. What happens if the others are producing less than the bottleneck. Then, of course, the total output of the whole company cannot be higher than the bottleneck, and it's suboptimal. That's why the theory of constraints insists on tying all the production with the bottleneck. What are the results? After the application of the SDBR, we find out that the working time found has to be modified or has been modified. As we observed the production, we find out that each day around 8 o'clock in the morning and around the noon, there is something. It's probably more biological or anthropological. This was not the case of our research, but we found out that at these times, the production was more problematic, to say. The rate of scrap rise, the lead times were higher, so they were slower. And all at the end, the production was not at the optimum rate. So we decide to implement 2 breaks at these times, just to have small consultation or short refreshment, whatever, just to break the pattern of the labor day. And despite actually working less, this helped, so the total production was not decreased by that. Okay? By optimizing the production, we also find out that we needed only 50% of the employees. So the employees were transferred from the rubber production site to other parts of the company. The production didn't decrease, so it led to the possibility to increase the wages. Okay? By decreasing the employees by 1/2, we can almost double the wages. The company decided to increase the wages by 75%. So what was the outcome from the perspective of employees? They were working 6.5 hours per shift, so they were working less, but all of their time was more productive, and they received the pay rise for 75%. This probably, we believe, this led to a huge stabilization of people in this site. If we took the entry level of fluctuation as 100%, then after the implementation I'm sorry, I marked the wrong number. After the implementation, the fluctuation dropped from 14% to 17%. Okay, so it was like half of the initial level. The metrics of unused cost decreased from the initial level of 100% to 27 or 32. It depended which production site, but basically this drop is really significant. The decrease of unused cost is tremendous. So we can say that the effectivity of using technologies, of using spaces, of using these fixed costs or capacity costs hugely improved, which is not only about the money, but it's also about the waste management. It's also about ecology. If you have some technology and you are using it, there is some impact, for example, on environment, etc., etc. And the last but not least result was a labor productivity. It increased from approximately 65% at the beginning to 85 or 92. Again, this varies for different production sites. And I would especially draw your attention here. When we find out this 92%, we were really, really surprised, because this is almost too good to be true, to be precise. These numbers are suspicious in a real business life, but we double-checked, and yes, it seems like it's correct. It was not for the whole production, but at least at some areas of production, this was achieved. What is our discussion? Of course, based on these results and based on the feedback from the company, we believe that the implementation of the SDBR model was successful in this case. And even though that the theory of constraint and the SDBR is actually quite old and quite well-researched topic, it seems like first, it is still valid. Second, the research is still going on, as you can see on this slide. And most, but not least, the importance of optimized production technology probably is now, the importance is growing. Why we do believe that? We do believe that because the optimized production is not optimized only from perspective of money, from perspective of finance. Yes, of course, return on investment, economic value added, turnover of the assets. All these metrics are important and we cannot neglect them, but also the optimized means optimized from energy consumption, optimized from scrap material, optimized from the wastewater, optimized from the perspective of treating the employees. And all these impacts, we believe, will be more and more important in the future. Our conclusion is that even though that the research is case study, which means it's limited and focused only on one company, we still believe that there are some outcomes which can be transferred outside the company. First, these outcomes, these results can be used as benchmarking for other companies. And second, of course, the knowledge gained during this implementation of the SDBR can be transferred to other companies as an experience or proof of concept or best practice. I prepared some bibliography, but as we are running out of time, I won't spend time on that. Thank you for your attention. This was our presentation of optimized production technology. And now I would like to thank you for being here with us for the afternoon session of the International Day of Science. We will have a 15 minutes coffee break. Normally, I would invite you for a coffee and some small refreshment, but because of the COVID pandemics, a lot of you are not here presently. So please make coffee yourself at home, have something small to eat, and we will be back here in 15 minutes. See you then. Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the afternoon session of the International Day of Science 2021 Scientific Conference. This afternoon session is scheduled for 4 papers. There is actually a minor change in the schedule. The last paper, which should be presented by Dr. Vladimir Schulz, will not be presented today because of some medical reasons. So Dr. Vladimir Schulz is not available, unfortunately. I hope and I wish him full recovery. And we will start this afternoon presentation session with the research of cost behavior and cost behavior models designed for more efficient cost management, presented by Petr Novák. Petr, can we hear each other?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everybody.
Thank you. Welcome here. I believe that we can hear and see each other, so I would like to ask you if you can share your presentation with us, and we will proceed with the afternoon session.
Yes, my presentation is shared. Do you see it or not?
There is usually a small delay between the sharing and between we can see it on the screen, so I don't see it yet, but it is there already.
We will wait.
So no, we can go on. It's already there.
Yeah, it's okay?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As first, let me introduce myself very briefly. I'm involved as associate professor and researcher at the Moravian Business College, Olomouc, and also in Tomáš Baťa University in Zlín. My main areas of interests are cost management, controlling, entrepreneurship education, entrepreneurship sustainability, and others. Today, I want to speak about the topic of cost behavior and cost modeling. This topic was part of my research on cost behavior in the manufacturing companies. You can see it on the slide. I think that for some of you, this presentation will be more theoretical and maybe philosophical, but you can trust me that it is a very interesting topic, but addressed rather mainly marginally, although it can provide important information for managerial decision making. The importance of this topic can be appreciated just nowadays in the pandemic period, when in many cases we can see a partial decline in production or in services, or a complete suspension of the company's activities. Nevertheless, we can observe that in these companies, there are still typically fixed costs. But on the other hand, there has also been a gradual reduction in some costs, which we consider just as fixed. We did not consider such costs to be variable due to the volume of production. However, they may be variable due to other factors like a number of customers, number of suppliers, and so on. So this topic will become more important for sure with the restart of the economy and the gradual growth of production to a higher level. Because a number of costs will be revived that will need to be managed, and it will be necessary to determine their variability. So you can see that the main research areas of my research was research of cost and cost groups behavior, research of the dependencies in the cost behavior, and suitable projection of these costs to costing systems and calculation systems on the base of appropriate drivers, prediction and planning of overhead costs. So what was the main goals? The main goals was to explore and analyze the behavior of overhead costs on the cases of concrete manufacturing companies. It was 6 companies, from the perspective of potential dependence on defined factors, and suggest possible utilization for decision-making process. As the next goal or aim, it was proposed a predictive model that would reflect the observed dependencies and thus help manager to make the adequate decisions. So something for introduction of this topic. We need to say that area of the cost management is one of the most important areas of company performance and company financial management. We can observe a continuously growing importance of cost management system quality that is caused by dramatic changes in the business environment. We have a higher need for understanding of the consume cost by different activities and other different areas where the costs play the important role. A big problem is the increasing share of overheads and thus the need for their deeper management and differentiation, as these overheads tend to evolve and thus show us their variability, but not only to the production volume. That's very necessary. As we can see to the traditional and new costing systems, we can see that the traditional distinction of cost behavior seems to be insufficient. As traditional, we can consider division of costs into fixed and variable only with respect to the volume of production. But sometimes costs rise more with increases in activity volume, then they fall down with decreases in activity volume. We call it asymmetric cost behavior, and we call it also sticky costs or sticky cost phenomenon. In fact, not knowing and understanding cost behavior can lead to poor and even disastrous decisions. Here we can say that the behavior of direct costs is clearly intended by volume of production. That's no problem. But however, in the case of overheads, the situation in their behavior is not so straightforward. Behavior of overheads and their growth or decline isn't often described in the companies. And furthermore, there are not also identified factors influencing overhead costs behavior. There are a lot of groups, cost groups, where any dependence on any factors simply do not exist. In contrast, there are the groups of overheads, such, for example, sales costs, logistic costs, etc., where, on the contrary, we could assume that the dependencies on various factors may exist. Okay, some words about the methodology of the research. As this topic was part of qualitative research in manufacturing companies, you can see some information about the company. Verification was performed in a total of 6 companies. This case study was the first one to set up a cost model and then validate it in other companies. You can see that this company produces a large volume of tires. And what is necessary, this product can be measured not only per pieces, but also per weight, and we measure it in kg, in kilograms. The monthly period was chosen, and it was about 24 observation in each company. Also, in each company, adequate groups of costs were defined, which could be analyzed and managed. We call it dependent variables, and various factors as independent variables were also defined. Such factors, drivers, that could be expected to affect the costs, mainly the overheads. The obtained data were subjected to in-depth statistical analysis. You can see what was made, and it was the analysis was done in the SAS software with many statistical tools. Okay, on this slide, you can see that there were defined 5 factors as drivers, against which the behavior of costs was assessed and the various dependencies were sought. As you can see, the number 1, we suppose that the increasing of overheads is connected with the increasing number of orders in the system. It could be, for example, for orders processing, as well as costs related to the relevant products putting into a production process. As number 2, we suppose that there are related overheads with increasing number of batches due to readjustment of production process. Number 3 and number 4, it was standard factor expressing the volume of production. And number 5, production time could be connected with its effective utilization. And it could be K factor for some cost groups, for example, energy cost, repairs, and so on. Also, in other companies, these factors were, for example, number of standard machine hours, number of customers, number of orders, number of items in orders, and many others. So, also some hypotheses were stated. I think it's not necessary to explain it. And we can go straightly to results. You can see on the next 2 slides that there are only basic descriptive statistics for dependent and independent variables, which also represents basic information about the inputted data. As you can see, for example, that in the examined company, there was relatively large values of the overheads, overhead cost groups. It represents monthly values. So you can see, for example, in TOC, so in total overheads, that it was about 50 million Czech crowns per month. So it's a huge value. Also, if you look to next slide, you can see the independent variables. You can see, for example, here that there is the total production in kg, in kilograms, and also, for example, total production time in minutes per month. So it's only for your information how was the dependent and independent variables. Okay, as next slide here, you can see what was done. Here you can see the basic initial construct, which is based on the transform ABJ model, where the observed dependencies in the regression function are adjusted by a time shift to be proved or disproved the asymmetry of cost behavior. This formula was created and first used by the authors Anderson, Benker, and Janakiraman. They proved that there exist dependencies and the so-called asymmetric cost behavior to sales. This means that there are cost groups that react with a certain delay to the decline in sales. Okay, if we go on to next slide, based on the assumption, there were developed multiple linear regression models, including two transformed models. Models were based on the relationships and the formula you see before. As total, we created cost models for three groups of defined costs. So you can see here the three cost groups. It was total overheads. It was influence overhead costs and influenced overhead costs. In essence, what was done, we have created a cost function with non-standard independent factors, like number of orders and so on and so on. So the results show that a statistically significant effect on uninfluenced overheads have only factors production in kilograms together with total production time in minutes. So you can see the final formula here, and you can see that the statistically significance are only these two factors. So total production in kilograms and total production time in minutes. How we reach this formula, you can see on the next two slides. So this is the output from statistical software. And out of the detailed result of this model number one, there can be seen that not any factor has a statistical significant effect on total overheads factor. It's due to the p-value, which is very, very high. So there is no statistically significant effect. Another situation is illustrated on the next slide. So the model number one for dependent variables, uninfluenceable overhead costs. Here you can see that the statistical significance of two factors, so again, the production in kilograms and total production time in minutes, significantly affects the cost groups uninfluenceable overhead costs. Because statistically significant factors were lower than level of significance 0.05. You can see it there in the yellow field. So we created a lot of these models for each category of costs, but at the end, only this one category proved some dependencies on various factors. So as next was cost modeling. We used logarithmic modeling to address changes in costs. By a shift in time of about 1 month, these models can be used to examine costs affected by a shift in time concerning a limited period, as was said. We want to prove the cost asymmetric behavior, and we proved the sticky costs. So we subjected, we used only proven significant independent variables for this modeling. So it was production in kilograms and total production time in minutes. And we create adjusting model which prove the cost asymmetric behavior, and we call it sticky costs. Okay, so these cost models were verified on further case studies of manufacturing companies for different cost categories, and the individual results were analyzed in details. For example, in the case of the next examined company, within detailed analysis of available data, it was possible to find and compile only one significant regression model. Even there was used detailed data about overheads, administrative overheads, and so on. Also, factors was defined as independent. It was sales volume, the standard factor, then number of standard machine hours. It's not standard factor, number of customers, and so on. So this only one significant regression model of cost dependence was created for the cost group of total overheads, excluded personal costs, and there is the formula with one significant factor. It's number of standard machine hours. So, what to say to summary and conclusion? We can say that proposed methodology for costs analyzing may bring new information and new insight and fresh information for management decisions. These models can be seen as the way into a deeper exploration of overhead costs dependence behavior. We also proved that there exists a correlation of overhead costs behavior on some selected factors, which confirm our assumptions. In different cases, the dependence of different costs on a number of factors as established variables has been demonstrated. As examples could be stated factors like the number of standard machine hours factors, or the order size, or number of invoice issued, and so on. There could be many of these factors. Okay, so what are our conclusions? It is possible to identify the so-called asymmetric cost behavior. It's very necessary, which results not only from the development of significant factors of the period, but also the occurrence of costs affected by previous periods, which was confirmed almost in all investigations. As in other countries, we have shown that there exists so-called asymmetric cost behavior. However, unlike global studies, we went into more in-depth research and demonstrated the dependence of asymmetric behavior on different cost groups, depending on different factors, drivers, or you can say independent variables. This cost modeling also seems to be a suitable complement, for example, for the use of activity-based costing methods, as a tool for verifying the relevance of selected drivers for different cost groups. If we want to be correct, we have to mention also some limitations of this modeling. The first limitation, and I think the main limitation, is the quality of input data. The major problem might be the relevance of cost with respect periods. Also, the right allocation of costs to centers, and many other factors with data inputted to the systems. The next limitation could be seasonality of production. It causes uneven, discontinuous flow of production, other factors, and thus also fluctuation in costs. This also reduces the validity of the regression functions and our models. The final limitation of this research is the duration of analyzed periods. We can say that the more observation periods we have, the more accurate are the prediction of cost evolution. So as you can see, I think this topic could be very interesting, and this topic could be also very necessary in cost management in the next maybe days or months or maybe years. Okay, that's all for my side. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you a very, very pleasant day.
Thank you, Petr, for your presentation. After two case study oriented research, now in the schedule is research focused on education. The next presentation should be business schools and COVID-19 challenges, evidence from selected European countries. And this research, these outcomes of the research should be presented either from Emil Velinov or Pavel Strach. So I would like to ask whether we have a sound, yes, or picture. We will see the picture in a while. We are slightly behind the time. On the other hand, as we lost one presentation due to Dr. Schulz is not presented, I believe we are still on time. So welcome to International Day of Science. Yes. And if you are ready, we can start with your presentation.
Yeah, sure. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction. Do you see my slides?
Not yet. There's a short delay usually before uploading them, before presenting them. But yes, we see them right now.
Okay, I just want to share again because I unshared. Okay, 1 second. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so hello everyone. It's a pleasure for me to present this international conference here at the IDS, at the international conference, the paper which is titled Business Schools and COVID Challenges, which is the evidence from the selected European countries. Myself, Emil Velinov, and along with my head of the department, Mr. Pavel Strach. He is not able to join, but I will present this paper. So taking into the topic before I start with the presentation, the motivation beyond this study which we conducted at our university was imminently, of course, the pandemic period. We wanted to find out from student perspectives along with our European partners, which are also business schools, what actually is the impact of COVID from perspective of the student eyes or from the student's perception. The motivation was also driven by the fact that also in the literature, present literature, that we found out a lot of sources which is referring to the modern higher education on management that has been significantly impacted and affected by the world pandemic. And we particularly focus on not only emerging markets from Eastern Europe, but as you can see here, there is evidence that actually the pandemic changed, particularly higher education in emerging economies like Philippines, Nigeria, India, Saudi Arabia, and many others. Another factor is here that actually the business schools, they have to, compete in very harsh environment where pandemic is only, of course, one of the main, let's say, challenges. But another, according to this literature review, another factor is that the increasing competitiveness across the business schools. Because this is another factor which is emerging. Third factor is the teaching effectiveness, because the business schools, of course, they have to measure the impact also of how teaching is delivered, how teaching, the process of teaching is leading into success for the students, how the students, of course, perceive that, because these studies are mainly that are through the eyes or in the student's perception. Then last but not least, we're speaking here also about, when we're speaking about global management education, about integrity and accountability. Because in the online delivery, we simply understand that the ethical dimensions and also the accountability and responsibility for all stakeholders, starting from teachers and students, needs to be on a very high level. Otherwise, this I would say teaching effectiveness cannot have decent level. And all stakeholders, of course, here, they need to be accountable and responsible for that. That's also another factor supported by, world literature. More, if we're digging out on the global management education, we have to say that there is also the so-called significant societal impact on the tertiary education, because actually a lot of the business schools, they reorientated their activities, cooperation with other stakeholders, key partners. For example, establishing business incubators, launching courses and trainings for the society, for third parties, for the schools, cooperation with other schools, particularly high schools. Also, the pandemic accelerated, of course, the implementation of digital platforms, as one of them, which we are using now, Microsoft, forms, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, and many others. Also, the pandemic impacted significantly the internationalization of the business schools, because the business schools in the pandemic time, they had to basically internationalize through online, platforms, or they had to internationalize at home, or so-called home internationalization, which also in the past the university either didn't focus on that, or they at least weren't forced to do so. But now in the pandemic, all this shift of the operations, I would say, of the business schools significantly affected the perception of what business school is and how the business school have to orientate, what disciplines to be included, how this process, teaching and learning process, will be looking like. And at the moment, of course, we're going through a huge transformation. The internationalization abroad, on the other hand, was triggered again by the pandemic, because we can see nowadays that there are more and more offerings from different business schools, which are offering, for example, summer schools, spring schools, international weeks, online, which means that they're forced to do. Actually, some of them do it hybrid, as you're doing, guys, now. The research questions and the research methods here are mainly, as I said, we focus on the how the pandemic changed, the direction of these business schools through the eyes of the students. So we have launched here online survey, which we did it through the Google Forms in the period of September to December last year. So it was in the fall semester last year, across 4 European countries, because we are virtually cooperating. Our university is called Aalto University. We have a project in the international management course. We are cooperating with another 3 universities, business schools. One is in the UK, one is in Germany, and one is in Iceland. So all European countries, all European business schools, very similar background, very similar operations. And we try to see eventually how in that period, what has changed in comparison to before. So here we have the structure of the respondents, what we already collected. Due to the low respondent numbers from Iceland, because initially we just got only 7 respondents, we changed the Icelandic partner with Estonia. So we proceeded because, as I said, we wanted to get similar sample size from all the participants. So as you see here, the average age of the participants, I mean of the students in this case, and then the breakdown by bachelor master students, and then also in which semester of their studies are. So this is the data sample. Moving to the study results, so we, by applying, because we have used extended Likert scale 1 to 7, where 1 is, completely dissatisfied, 7 is very satisfied. Overall, we saw that even though these universities and business schools, our partners, including ourselves, where the students completely said that, of course, they see these online, working, studying as completely new, because it significantly changed also their daily routines. It changed their, even I would say, lifestyles. They were rather satisfied, and they were rather satisfied in terms of score, in terms of perception. From their perspective. So we can see here that first we send a questionnaire with 17 questions, where there were questions about what is the perception of the students of how they see the business universities, for example, from tuition fee, from a working climate, also friendliness and competent lectures, which means that is more related to the quality of the lectures delivered by the teachers, the professors. Then we ask another questions about the innovativeness of the university. In the innovativeness, it was not only simply if the university use or apply Microsoft Teams, Zoom, or any other platform, but the innovativeness comes from the perspective of how these curricular development actually corresponds with the enhancements of this latest technology. So it means that how the students, of course, see from perspective of interaction, from perspective of communication with the respective teachers, and also how the students are provided also feedback. So it was here the scores were rather satisfying, as you see, from 1 to 7. Then moving to the next type of questions, because in the questionnaire we had also questions about utilization of the technology, which nowadays I think it's also imperial part of the online teaching and learning process. So here, of course, the scores the scores were rather mixed, because as you can see, particularly when it comes to utilization intensivity of these technologies in combination with online libraries and databases, here in students' eyes, the scores weren't that good, because they were even under 4, which means that some of the business schools, from the selected business schools, couldn't really, I would say so far, of course, as of December 2020, enhance all these technologies when it comes to looking or searching for online sources, because we know that during coronavirus, actually the library is supposed to be kind of like the strongest tool, where the students can browse and see actually articles, monographies, many others needed for their studies. The use of internet here, as was before COVID, it was very high score, because the students in the business schools are very used to using different internet search engines. Of course, surprisingly, we got very low score on the social media portals, because either in some business schools, the social media portals are not very common to be used, but not in all 4 schools. For example, schools in Estonia or here ourselves, we allow and the students intensively use, for example, the social media to communicate out with other stakeholders, to collect data and so on. The video channels, and when it comes to YouTube utilization, of course, also here there is I would say, huge room for potential for increase, because through video channels, of course, there are a lot of activities, particularly in the business school, which take place. And then we shifted to the community, which is the conference technologies, where already all business schools here, the selected, they highly apply these conference technologies. Then the cloud-based groupware, that's also something what our or at least our business schools also implemented intensively, especially in the last half a year, 1 year. And then at the end we focus here also on the use of particular other group chats, for example, like WhatsApp, like WeChat, because in the virtual cooperation, when it comes, these platforms that were really accelerated across all 4 universities here. And we can say that they're also very much intensively used by the students, and also helped a lot in their communication. And at the end, the learning portals, which are the university portals, they have been used, I would say, moderately, because the pandemic didn't increase that so much, because it was for the price that the external kind of applications or apps, they were increased. So in the discussion, we have to say that immediately here, as I said, the student perception of the selected schools in terms of usage and innovativeness, I would say, was significantly impacted by the technology, at least from the student perspective. Also, the result shows that the overall, I would say, international orientation is still high across these business schools, because they kept in touch, through the platforms. They did a lot of, as I said, joint programs and curricular internationalization and development, especially in the COVID time. Then the iCloud services usage, which is the applicability, highly increased, and it brought the importance of platforms like WeChat, WhatsApp, and YouTube, for example, that their usage is increasing. And then at the end here, last but not least, when we are speaking about curriculum development, we have to say that across these 4 business schools, the curriculum was also developed and advanced from perspective of finding more subjects into bringing the internationalization, because simply the physical mobilities, they were sharply decreased. So in conclusion, I have to say that in the sample, the business schools, they were first of all forced, of course, by the COVID-19, but also in this harsh and turbulent environment, they were very much, rolled out their, different technologies and tools in the learning process. And this, of course, it was, I would say, thanks to COVID. Also, the pandemic led into increasing of a competitiveness and adaptability towards different education market, because these business schools, of course, fully understand that in the global education market, they have to focus on these, bringing more students from different countries. And last but not least, the positive, of course, student perception, overall positive student perception, led into the fact that the universities only are looking now for more sustainable, of course, models for keeping their, lessons, seminars, lectures extremely, I would say, interactive by applying different ad hoc apps, which of course significantly help both sides, not only learners to get engaged, but also for the educators to be more motivated and to continue. So that's it from my side. Thank you so much. I'll be happy if there are any comments, questions, and so on. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. It was a nice touch of your family in the background. This is pretty much my experience.
My son just came back from the kindergarten. I'm sorry.
Good for him. I have a similar experience with online teaching. I know my students much better now. I know who has a dog. I know who has a younger sister, etc., etc. So it's not that impersonal as we probably all expected. Thank you for...
That's also thanks to the pandemic.
Thank you for your presentation. Last but not least in our schedule for today is a presentation of evaluation of economic impacts of cyber threats on key areas of the information environment. And this presentation is prepared by Lukáš Pavlík and Jiří Blahuta, and I believe it will be presented by Lukáš Pavlík. Lukáš, welcome to the studio. You have now the floor, so please present your paper.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Menšík. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, again. My name is Lukáš Pavlík. I am researcher and academic staff at Moravian Business College in Olomouc. And in this presentation, I would like to introduce you our research in the field of cybersecurity. So the title of our paper is Evaluation of Economic Impacts of Cyber Threats on the Key Areas of the Information Environment. On this slide, you can see the outline of our presentation. The first, I will talk about introduction into area of cybersecurity. At second, I will talk about methods that were used in our research. At third, I will focus on main results. And finally, I will talk about discussion and possible future research. Okay, in the last few years, small and medium-sized organizations have been increasingly exposed to cyber attacks. These cyber attacks are more sophisticated every year, and attackers, thank you very much, and attackers often exploit malicious files that can be downloaded by users through their computer networks. So cyber attacks can have very serious financial impacts, and not only for the organization's tangible assets, but also for intangible assets. And these financial impacts include a very wide range of financial damages and defects, which may include damage to physical parts of the information systems, like hardware, servers, etc., or a breach of integrity, availability, and confidentiality of sensitive data. This data can be about customers, about business partners, or about know-how. And expressing the price of these areas is rather problematic. So the aim of this paper was to identify all areas in information environment which are necessary for economic or insurance purposes to value. Now I'm moving on to the methods that were used in our research. The definition of areas which can be affected by the impacts of cyber threats were based on several factors. The first factor is questionnaire survey. This research took place in 2019 in 20 questions in 20 organizations, in the Czech Republic, and was based the respondents' answers to 20 questions concerning the organization's security against cyber threats and their impacts. So the name of the organizations that were the subject of the research are hidden for security reasons, but on this slide you can see the map with marked places where our organizations are located. To illustrate how questions and answers correlate, I'm going to show you several tables that describe the main results of the research. The first table I'm going to present is focused on open questions. As you can see, this table is focused on information environment of these organizations, such as number of information systems, recovery of sensitive data, or possible most valuable assets. The second table shows closed questions. This table is focused on some sensitive data, hardwares, or some experiences with cyber attacks in these organizations. And in this table, maybe you can see some perception of these organizations to area of insurance against cyber risks. The main aim of a questionnaire survey was to identify all areas which can be affected by the impacts of cyber threats. And based on the findings, it can be stated that the areas that may be most affected by the impacts of cyber threats or attacks are hardware, software, or reputation of the organization. So the other costs that maybe represent a significant financial burden include costs of data reconstruction or recovery, some fines that may be required by supervisory authorities, or loss turnover. At this point, I would like to summarize the research that I have presented. So the main aim of this paper was to identify some areas which can be affected by the impact of cyber threats. And we can see that the most endangered areas are hardware, software, or reputation of this organization. Among other areas include costs of reconstruction and recovery data, fines, or loss turnover. And we have several challenges in this area that can be covered by further research. For example, determine expression of financial impacts on this area and tangible or intangible assets. So we reached the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention, ladies and gentlemen. And if you have any questions, so I'm available. Thank you again.
Thank you for your presentation, and thank you very much for putting us back on track with the time. Ladies and gentlemen, due to the medical reasons, Dr. Schulz will not present his paper today, so this is the end of the afternoon session for today. Let me please invite you for tomorrow's program of the International Day of Science. Tomorrow there are scheduled 2 events. First is Maps in Business and Economy, which is workshop led by Jaroslav Burian. And after the coffee break tomorrow at 10:15, we will start with a PhD session, which is a session specially dedicated to PhD students. So today is over, but the International Day of Science is not over yet. The program is scheduled also for tomorrow, workshop on the maps in business, and then PhD session. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I feel like this environment is probably not what we were used to from previous years. The live contact, the live discussion is usually on the conferences the most valued asset. However, this is how we work now under the COVID pandemics. And I believe next year for the International Day of Science, we will meet again in person. So thank you for being with us and see you tomorrow.